So recently I was looking for somewhere to explore off my never-ending to-do list when I considered Mount Sorrel Castle, just north of Leicester. And as I studied the area I noticed 3 other castles and defended manor houses close by. So I thought, sod it, let's give it a go. Number 1. Kirby Muxloe Castle. It's located in the village centre off Oakcroft Avenue, about 4 miles west of Leicester on the B5380. Now this one was a great surprise. Wasn't expecting this. The site is owned by English Heritage, and sadly it's only open on a Saturday, Sunday and bank holidays. Now I went a weekday, but you can walk around the moat anytime and it's gorgeous. There has been a manor house at Kirby Muxloe since at least the 13th century. It was originally founded by the Packman family. The original rectangular platform encased by a moat supported a hall and chamber blocks, of which the foundations still remain. In 1480, Lord William Hastings, 1st Baron of Hastings, during the Wars of the Roses, was granted licence from Edward IV to crenellate or add battlements to his manors at Kirby Muxloe, Bagworth, Ashby-de-la-Zouch and Slingsby, under the control of John Cowper, the master mason. William Hastings' ambition was to create a fortified residence on a rectangular plan with enclosed walls, towers and a moat. However, in 1483, when the 40-year-old Edward IV died, work stopped at the castle promptly, due to Richard III accusing William Hastings of treason, and without trial he had him taken out to the courtyard and promptly beheaded on June the 13th, despite the close friendship. And the fate of Edward V, Edward IV's 12-year-old son, who was one of the princes in the tower, has never been solved. Now later, Richard III, perhaps regretting his perceived necessity to kill William, issued a special grant to his widow, restoring the family's inheritance. Now sadly, William Hastings' descendants chose not to resume work, and the half-finished castle drifted into ruin. Sometime later it was used as a farm, until the Ministry of Works commenced clearance of the site in 1911, repairing the brickwork and carrying out an archaeological survey. And it is rumoured that the head of William Hastings appears at one of the windows during the light of the full moon. And in Shakespeare's Henry VI, it's Hastings who appears in the play as a ghost that taunts Richard III before the Battle of Bosworth. and the ghost of Jane Shore is said to walk the grounds in the dead of night in a long flowing gown, eerily reflecting the moonlight. Elizabeth Jane Shore was born in London around 1445 and was the daughter of a prosperous merchant. She was thought to have been highly intelligent, literate, merry and playful, and her beauty earned her the title of the Rose of London. And she was said to be the most beautiful mistress of Edward IV, and she became the best known in history through being later accused of conspiracy by the future King Richard III, and she was compelled to do public penance by walking the streets of London to the Tower of London in shame, Game of Thrones style. Now, Jane Shore was also a sometimes mistress of other noblemen, including Edward's stepson Thomas Grey and William Hastings. And it is rumoured that Lord Hastings is said to have installed her at Kirby Muxloe Castle, despite him being married, which is presumably why her ghost walks the castle grounds. She even had a book written about her exploits. Right, number 2, Mount Sorrel Castle. This one's an earthwork moat and bailey fortress, probably founded by Hugh Lupus, who was Earl of Leicester in 1080. And moat and bailey castles are medieval fortifications introduced to Britain by the Normans. They comprise like a conical mound of earth or rubble called the moat, surmounted by a palisade and a stone or timber tower. And there are over 600 motte and bailey castles recorded in the UK. Mount Sorrel Castle is located right at the village centre, and it's just off Watling Street, which was the old Roman road, and 6 miles north of Leicester on the A6. And standing on the north part of a granite outcrop is an eroded circular motte, with the remaining platform becoming a now mutilated bailey. And on the south side of the hill is a remaining part of the bailey ditch, which survives for a length of 60 metres. Very hard to make out now though. Pottery fragments found at excavations provide evidence of an earlier normal settlement in the area, and possibly a Roman villa is supposed to have existed during the 4th century AD here. And in 1174, Mount Sorrel Castle was besieged by King Henry II's forces, to whom it fell. And again in 1217, Mount Sorrel Castle saw more action when it was used against King Stephen. and was subsequently destroyed by the King's men from Nottingham, who branded it a nest of devils and a den of thieves and robbers. Now, in the meantime, King Louis VIII of France had sent support in the form of 2,000 men to the besieged barons in the castle. But these forces failed to arrive in time to prevent the razing to the ground of the castle, and it was never repaired or rebuilt. A small-scale excavation in 1952 revealed granite foundations within the motte, and there were traces of sandstone blocks and medieval building material within the second mound to the south. And the motte is partly quarried away and crowned by the War Memorial. The village of Earl Shilton evolved on Shilton Hill in the Iron Age, and what would become Leicestershire, and below the hill ran an ancient trackway known as the Salt Road. A tribe known as the Corriel lived in the region of Rate Corriel during the late Iron Age, constructed this ancient road running along the southern edge of the Great Leicester Forest, a vast tract of impenetrable woodland which entirely covered West Leicestershire and stretched up to Nottingham and Derbyshire. The Salt Road was a major artery of trade and passage for many centuries to come. The Roman legions spread north and west, and by AD 47 were pushing on into Leicestershire. At this time, the tribe chiefs were being severely harassed by the neighbours, the Brigantes, and so welcomed the Romans as a source of protection and stability. And the Romans established a frontier zone defined by the Fossway, straight through the middle of the friendly Corriel territory. And Shilton's first industry arrived during this period, when a pottery was established in Shilton Heath. Earl Shilton Castle was also a motte and bailey fortification introduced to Britain by the Normans, and was constructed in the late 11th century sometime. Its location on the hilltop with the ancient trackway made it an ideal site for dominating the route to Leicester, and for overseeing activity on the bordering forest known as Shilton Wood for the Normans. And during the Norman conquest, Earl Shilton was known as Shelton, meaning settlement on a hill. Fitting description. And when William I established a major fortification at Leicester, only 8 miles away, in 1068 the small hamlet's importance increased, and again in 1086 during the Domesday Survey, Earl Shilton's importance had risen massively. The settlement actually became known as Earl Shilton in the 13th century, taking its name from Simon de Montfort, Earl of Leicester. But by this time its use as a defensive structure had dwindled, leading to its destruction and subsequent conversion to a hunting lodge. The actual castle was constructed of earth and rubble, and the circular moat is approximately 50 metres in diameter with a flat top that would have included stone or timber tower, enclosed by a timber palisade with a ditch protecting the base of the mound. Now the castle's inner bailey would have extended to the west, occupying the footprint of the current churchyard, and an outer bailey covering. The existing gatehouse is a modern folly, or 19th century folly. Can be seen, but would have been much wider and deeper. Now this one was a complete failure. My sat-nav kept sending me to some fishery. I went round and round and I gave up with it in the end. But I'll do you a bit of information on it regardless. Brings the said 4 castles in the first place. It's not a complete failure then, is it? So, Groby Castle Hill. It has a medieval Motte Bailey castle surviving as an earthwork. And the motte was built around an existing stone structure apparently, possibly a Saxon tower. Now the Norman castle was built in 1086 by Hugh de Grentmel, and the castle was apparently destroyed by Henry II in 1176. That didn't last long, and it seems to be replaced by a more impressive castle before a manorial complex developed to the south in the 13th century. The Motte Bailey survives behind Groby Old Hall next to the A50 bypass, and fish ponds to the north were destroyed by the road construction. The oval castle motte is 6 to 7 metres high and measures approximately 38 metres by 20 metres with a flattish top. And it's enclosed by a ditch, but only partial remains exist. Very little survives of the bailey, but a map from 1757 shows an elongated oval enclosing round the motte and a bit of an area to the west. A geographical survey was carried out by a time team in 2010. 3 sides of the keep were defined, but the northern side had been quarried away. Now the existing Groby Old Hall was a 13th century defensible stone manor house. It was founded by the Ferrers family. It was rebuilt again in the late 15th century by Thomas Gray, and the front of the buildings are now one continuous facade. And there's a narrow 3-storey tower at the front which you can see, with the remains of a turret which has been absorbed in the late 16th century house. Right, we got there in the end, and thanks for sticking with me. And like, share and the usual stuff if you want to. Be appreciated. Thanks a lot.